Hello, YouTube.
And we're live.
I do not see anybody, but it's Friday night, so I know they will be appearing soon. I do not see. Welcome.
There's a bunch of people.
There is a bunch of people, but why am I not seeing them? Oh, hang on.
I have to turn them on.
There we go. All right. I see Barbie Heffernan, Chad Angelo, Doug Rutherford, Ellie Sanford Moore getting ready for a Friday night. Eric and Lauren Klein, some new wine lovers in the house. Hans and Caitlin Greasy, fantastic wine lovers. Jeff and Jane Greasy, Jim Brubaker is in the house, and everybody is signed up for class today. So those of you that are new to Cellar Angels, you recognize that we do play a lot with technology. And today we upgraded our Zoom account, and it has a pretty interesting filter that you could put facial stuff on, and we can't figure out how to get it off. So for that, I apologize. It won't be on next week if we can figure it out. I think I did say hello to Barbie Heffernan. But tonight we are going to be talking all sorts of educational things with regards to blends. And it is going to be a ton of fun. It's going to be not too geeky. We're going to try to stay away from the deep dive stuff that you can normally happen with when you're studying French origin of wines. And we're going to actually turn the screens on or turn the cameras on. Happy sip to everybody. Welcome sipsters. And let's see who else just joined. Jim Brubaker twice, JT Schilling, John Viszlay in the house. John is actually in the house in more ways than one. And special recognition to Mr. Viszlay coming to us live, I think, from Healdsburg area. I don't think he's in Chicago. Susan and Justin Burns in the house. Very happy to see you guys. Leah Dunn, Meredith Davis, you're in for a treat. This is the most entertaining hour of wine. We drink some serious wines on this program, Cellar Angels. We just don't take ourselves too seriously in the process. So for those of you that are new, let me orientate you to what we do, who we are real quickly, and then we're going to get right into the program. My name is Martin Cody. With me at Mission Control is co-founder Denise. And also behind the scenes in the studio is marketing extraordinaire person of the year who does not like to be on camera, fresh from witness protection, Ivy, and a couple of people back at the home office. But many of you have the Spicy Vines blend, which is a cool blend, a field blend. And then also you have the John Viszlay 5 Vines Bordeaux blend. Some of you that don't have them is because you did not know those were available in advance. They are. So when you go to the Cellar Angels website and you click on the Shop Wine All section, you will see this neat little invention courtesy of Denise and Ivy called the SIP Virtual Tasting Kit. Each kit will contain a rotating selection of wines that will get you 4, 5, 6 weeks in advance of every Friday night selection. So we're taking a little bit of a break from our previous 45 weeks in a row where we featured winemakers. And for the next 4 Fridays, we're going to be doing an educational deep dive series. And the wines are in the SIP kit. So if you don't have tonight's wines, you can jump onto the website, grab a SIP kit, and you can have next Friday's wines and the wines thereafter. So we are extremely excited about this. I thought you would like my background, John, because at the end of the day, this is the place I like to end up. We'll get more into that in a bit. Meredith Davis, I don't know if I said hello to you, but hello. Peter Glick, same thing. Scotland Kiefer, thank you very much for joining. I know for a lot of you, last week, what a difference a week makes, right? Last week, people were freezing, frigid, tundra had come all the way down to Houston. And this week, it's the big melt. So a lot of running water up in the colder states as temperatures stayed pretty consistent over 40 degrees. So that's fantastic there. Denise, right now is going to turn everybody's camera on. So if you have not bathed, aren't clothed, you should be okay. But if you want to chime in and turn your cameras on, that is going to be happening now. Robert Henderson, how are you doing, sir? Thanks for jumping on. These are the sipsters that are in the house, and we're going to get going very, very quickly here, as I hope more people jump on. And no, there will be no flight simulator this evening. That's the only thing. I am going to perfect that though. So very excited about maybe showing that to you again further on down the road. For those of you that want to be on camera, go ahead and hit that button in the lower left-hand corner with the video camera with the red line through it so we can see you. I'm going to start sharing the presentation for this evening as we jump into blends. Blends are awesome. And it's very exciting from that standpoint because we don't get to do a lot of educational things on Cellar Angels because most of the consumers that we work with and the folks, all of you, are fairly advanced wine drinkers, so you know quite a bit about blends. So do I see some people now?
I got it.
Okay. There I see Peter Glick. I see Barbie Heffernan. Now we go. Scotland Kiefer. And Lily, I apologize. Week after week after week, we're just giving Scotland more and more reasons to open up more than one bottle of wine. It is. Scotland, I got the memo. Don't worry. I've got you covered, brother.
I love it.
There's Johnny Heffernan in the house. Hello, cuz. So good to see you. All right, let's get this show on the road as we discuss blends. So it is something that not many people tend to study, but it is an incredibly vital part of the wine industry. So to start with blends officially, we're gonna go a little bit over to France and we're gonna break precedent. So for those of you that have not tuned in before, we're gonna go Google Earth right off the bat. So this should usually get the crowd going. But the first thing we need to do is look at Bordeaux. So when we look at Bordeaux, this is the map of Bordeaux. Thanks courtesy of Madeline Puckett from Wine Folly, who has some amazing teaching aids. But as you can see, Bordeaux is, and by the way, draw some analogies here with where Cellar Angels spends most of their time, has a big old body of water on the left-hand side, has a giant river running through Bordeaux, and every single great wine region in the world has a maritime influence. Bordeaux is no different, and it has several of them. So you've got the Atlantic right here, the Gironde River right here, and as we zoom in a little bit to this map, you can actually see some of the great regions of Bordeaux are along the river. And we're going to zoom in a little bit closer when we do Google Earth. But here you have the Medoc region, you've got Graves, this is where all your dessert wines are, your sauternes. On the right-hand side of the river, the French thought long and hard about what to call this. This is the right bank. This is more of your Pomerol region, Saint-Emilion region. So this gives you an idea of just how much of a maritime and river influence is Bordeaux. And when you think about the fact that France was underwater of oceans for millennia, and then the water recedes, you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years of sedimentary pack, ocean particle material, exoskeletons and stuff. Then you've got the Gironde River coming in and exceeding its banks for hundreds of thousands of years. A lot of different sediment, a lot of different gravel, a lot of different sand, limestone, soil deposits here. So that's something to be aware of. The other thing to be aware of is, in fact, what Bordeaux looks like from up close and personal. So wine region. Those of you who are familiar with it from Cellar Angels, because this is where we focus 100%. Napa County, Sonoma County. Again, the similarities are striking. Big old body of water here, the Pacific. You've got a lot of rivers that run through this. The Russian River Valley here. You've got Lake Hennessy over here. And as we zoom closer and closer in, you even see more tributaries that go down to the San Pablo Bay, cut left to the ocean. Tons of influence as it relates to water and on the vineyard sources. One of the huge differences you're going to see between Bordeaux and California is topography, and it will blow you away. So let's hold on to your seats, because Google Earth going from Sonoma and Napa to Bordeaux is like a ride familiar with the tilt-a-whirl, if I'm dating myself. So now I'm going to pull out a little bit. For those of you that are motion sick, I apologize. And you can see a pretty nice little view of France right here. So you've got Paris, Mediterranean, Marseille, and then you've got the Atlantic. And here's the river that we just looked at a second ago, coming into the lower left-hand corner of France. So when we drill down into Bordeaux a little bit deeper, you can just see how huge these are. All vineyards. There is massive amounts of vineyards in Bordeaux on both sides of the river. And Bordeaux city center is not really much to speak of from a standpoint of, you probably wouldn't go to the taste wine, you would go to the surrounding areas. So on the left bank side of Bordeaux, you've got some very, very famous wineries, and I've highlighted a few here. Chateau Margaux. And what's fascinating is how close these wineries are to the river. So when you think about this, everybody that's ever lived near the river, whether it's the Des Plaines River in Illinois, whether it's rivers in Washington, rivers in Colorado, they overflow and flood. So think about hundreds of thousands of years of this thing overflowing its banks and just depositing layers upon layers of sediment, a lot of times nutrient-rich sediment over the years that's just packed down into the soil. So here's Chateau Margaux. Up the street a little bit, very, very close by, is one of my favorite wineries in the world, Chateau Lynch-Bages, just right up the river. It's almost like we're looking in New Orleans type of thing. It looks like the Mississippi River, and we all know how often that overflows and exceeds its banks. So here, I mean, Chateau Lynch-Bages is crazy close to the river. And the other very, very big first growth, Mouton, again, not that far off the water. So there you have three very, very prominent left bank Cabernet dominant chateaus, all within a stone's throw of the water, not to mention the gorgeous blocks of vineyards that they have that are so meticulously maintained. Now let's go over to the right bank. And I think the right bank is interesting because the right bank, and you're going to learn, and many of you already know this, is Merlot dominant of interest. So we'll go visit Petrus. And you can see, again, just how flat it is. So when we look at Napa and Sonoma, the topography in the mountains there are night and day compared to what is happening in Bordeaux. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on at Cellar Angels and have over the last 10 years is, yes, we're well aware of, acutely aware of the expensive houses that produce wine. What we try to educate our consumers on are the houses that are right next to the expensive houses that produce fantastic wines that you may not really know. Now, from an education standpoint, this is Petrus. This is Le Fleur Petrus, which is another fantastic label. But of interest is a winery that maybe you've heard of, maybe not. Peter Glick, probably. So this is Chateau Gazin. So now if you were to Google, and don't do it during the presentation because then we'd lose you. But if you were to Google 2005 Chateau Petrus, that bottle from this winery right here is going for about $5,000 to $7,000 a bottle. The same 2005 Chateau Gazin, they share the same vineyards. They used to farm each other's vineyards. Some of this fruit here used to go into Petrus. The Gazin is $100 a bottle for the 2005. So 5,000 to 100. And then similarly, everyone is familiar with the movie Sideways and the great Chateau Cheval Blanc, made famous because of Miles' strong admonition that he hated Merlot, yet not recognizing that his trophy wine, the 52 or something Cheval Blanc, was 97% Merlot. But what I think is fascinating is to see how close these wineries are. So if I take the ruler and I go from Petrus to Gazin, I'm at half a mile. Oopsie. Quarter of a mile. So those two can actually see each other. If I go from Gazin to Cheval Blanc, again, it's not even a mile away. So here you can spend $4,000, here you can spend $7,000 a bottle, and then here you can spend $100. Now, $100 Merlot is pretty pricey from everyday standards, but when you're talking about a right bank Merlot in the proximity of this neighborhood, that's a steal. and it's an absolute steal. And that wine is a joy to drink. But what's also interesting is if I take Petrus, for example, and we're going to zoom in on Chateau Petrus just because it's so darn impressive. And we get this, actually, I haven't tried this outside of rehearsal, so live, this might be freaky. How'd that work out? I don't see anybody grabbing the air sickness bag yet. So here we are right outside of the most beautiful vineyard area in the world. Look at those hydrangeas. Are you kidding me? That's fantastic looking. Chateau Petrus. I showed you Chateau Gazine, which is right over here. So you can see it from the winery. It's just the Chateau right next door. But what's fascinating is, as we mosey on up the street, which is a wine term, mosey, you can see now just how crazy flat this is. I mean, that's just all river bottom over hundreds of thousands of years. There's not a hill in sight compared to, say, Napa and Sonoma. It's a beautiful property, and there are some hills, but it really is pancake flat, which is shocking to some people when they see it for the first time, especially if they've been to Napa and Sonoma. So that gives you an idea of basically Bordeaux, which I think is pretty interesting from the standpoint of topography. And for those of you, I haven't been to Bordeaux, so Justin, you have the same filter I have on, don't you? Yeah, I see that now. I have no idea how to get that off. Hopefully it's off by next Friday. We'll see what happens there. But this is going to be kind of interesting because that's basically where the blends started, was Bordeaux. So it's not unusual at all for us in the United States to make, it's almost the norm, 100% varietal specific wine. But in Bordeaux, they don't do that. It's rare to find 100% Cabernet Sauvignon or 100% Merlot or 100% Cab Franc in Bordeaux, because they're all used as blending grapes and they've been blending for 100+ years. So I did not see the question.
Why the difference if they're only a quarter mile apart?
The difference in price?
Yeah.
Marketing, ratings. It's not that different in Napa and Sonoma, where you can have very, very high-end brands like Kistler that source from Giacomo Vineyards, and you have someone else that sources from Giacomo Vineyards that doesn't have Kistler's power and history and longevity. So a lot of it is ratings, a lot of it is marketing dollars. Great question. So that is a quick trip to Bordeaux and a staunch Google Earth right out of the gates. The other thing that we're going to talk about now is some things to remember as it relates to, again, we're just painting the high level picture so we can talk about blends. So we're not going to get geeky on too much, but there is a similar to California navigation system around the label, around the regions, around the villages. In California, we call them AVAs. In France, they call them a little bit different. They start high and go low. So you have your regional, district, and village or village. So the region could be Bordeaux, the district is the Haute-Medoc, and Margaux is the village. So on the wine label, all that will be represented. So there's a ton of stuff on a French wine label, and to make it even more crazy is, did it show up now? Hang on. It's not as bad as the flight simulator. That I can promise you. Now, thank you. All right, so here's the Chateau Margaux label. Scotland and Lily are giving me faster confirmations than the production studio upstairs with the thumbs up. So applications in the mail. You can see there's a whole bunch of stuff on the French wine label. So we're going to focus on kind of what we just talked about with regards to region. The Chateau name is right here, obviously Chateau Margaux. 2, classification, Premier Grand Cru Class. 7 is the region, Margaux. 8 is the appellation. So this is the appellation Margaux Contrôlée. Lot of regulations with regards to, if you're going to put that on your label, you've got to have very, very strict adherence to a lot of laws on what can go in this wine. So it's not too dissimilar in the United States when we talk about If you're going to put Cabernet Sauvignon, a certain percentages has to be Cabernet Sauvignon. If you're going to put estate, if you're going to put the name of the AVA, there's laws requiring how much of the grape has to be in there. By the way, please drink. Hopefully no one's waiting for me to tell them to go ahead and drink. Thank goodness. All right, so that's the region and the hierarchy of everything that goes on in Bordeaux. Bordeaux is big. I want to try to give you an idea of size. Everything in France, obviously, is the metric system. So I converted it for you because I don't like reading vineyard sheets when it says we've got 200 hectares. I have no idea how many 200 hectares is, but Bordeaux has 300,000 hectares of vines, 741,000 acres. When we go look at the Russian River Valley and we look at how big, and Russian River Valley is one of the largest AVAs in Sonoma, it has 15,000 acres. And the Russian River Valley is huge. So that gives you an idea of just how massive Bordeaux is as it relates to, ground under vines or acres under vines. It's pretty impressive. So you can go for days and days and days and just not even come close to seeing a tenth of the wineries. All right, in your chat, this is some of the Google Earth questions and poll questions. Who can name the Bordeaux varietals?
Dun, 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 dun,
How come I can't see chat?
dun, dun. You have to open it. Did you find it?
It's not in share mode. Oh, darn. Is there a correct answer?
There we go. Oh boy.
There's extra points for speed too, by the way.
Ooh,
Oh, now we see.
extra points for the Carmenere.
Greg and Leah, to all panelists. That might be winner chicken dinner right there. Nelson Holden, Cabernet, 1 out of 5, Nelson. I know you're better than that. Yes, I see everyone's got Scotland's nailed it. Meredith has nailed it. Jeff and Jane Greasy added Carmenere. Doug Rutherford got them all. So it's interesting. Carmenere, I mean, are you kidding me? How is Carmenere? Jim, no one likes a smart aleck except, of course, myself. So that's good. Carmenere is a relatively new one. Does anybody in the chat know why they added Carmenere? You can turn on your microphones too. Apparently Scotland has my notes.
And Jeff and Jane.
Nelson. Nelson can't type. So for next week, we're going to be doing buzzers. Everyone's going to get FedEx to hand buzzer, like Jeopardy. In fact, yes, they actually started introducing Carmenere in Bordeaux as one of the varietals for global warming because it does better with the warming in Bordeaux. In fact, there is a whole bunch of new grapes that are now allowed in Bordeaux, which is crazy considering the rigidity of the Bordeaux classification systems and what they've had by law for the longest time. So get this, there are new approved varieties, are 4 reds that are approved for Bordeaux: Aranoranoa, Castets, Marcelin, and Touriga Nacional. Touriga Nacional is actually, I've had that before. 2 whites, Alvarinho, and Liliorelia. John Viszlay is going to be correcting us on pronunciation later for the after-hour session when we go into learning French. So you've got 4 new red varietals in addition to Carmenere that are actually going to be allowed to be grown and produced in Bordeaux, and all because of global warming, which I think is fascinating. So that gives you an idea on Bordeaux. We talked about left bank, right bank. We talk about how a river runs through it. Fascinating, the Gironde River. It actually looked, you saw it on Google Earth, how muddy it was. So, there's some current there that can stir up a lot of sediment and different things on the bank. The left-hand side, by the way, is a little bit more gravelly, the left bank, than the right-hand side, which is more sand. And that makes sense, because if the river is meandering and all of a sudden it says it starts overflowing, it's going to go to the path of least resistance. It's going to not overflow the gravel. It's going to deposit more sand and silt on the right-hand side, just by the sheer current of it. No one mentioned Tannat. They did not mention Tannat, but that's a good one, because that one is up and coming as well. So there's our crash course on Bordeaux as it relates to what we're talking about with traditional aspects of blending. So now we're going to go over to the new world style of blending in California, specifically as it relates to kind of blending. First, one of tonight's featured wine is in fact the Viszlay. I love when I have saved my own pictures and it warns me on my own material. So here you have the Viszlay 5 vines. So not too dissimilar to Bordeaux. We've got the name of the Chateau. We've got the name of the wine. We've got the estate red blend. We have the appellation, or the American viticultural area, the Russian River Valley, and we have the county, the Sonoma County. If I do the same thing for spicy vines, you've got a logo for the name. The name of the winery is actually on the back. You do have kind of the region. You also have the wine type, red blend, and you have the vintage on the 2015. So again, blends, John has on his 5 vines, which is typical for the 5 wines or 5 varieties of Bordeaux. And the edge is actually named because it's a field of, and we'll get into the field blend, of just randomness, which is crazy cool, but very difficult. You'll see why here in a second. So the Viszlay Russian River, and as if you didn't have enough Google Earth, we're going back to Google Earth. We're ODing on Google Earth this evening, which I'm a big fan of. So we're going to say goodbye to Petrus. Head over to Viszlay. Close your eyes or you're going to get nauseous. I'm going to stop it right there. So you can see just how massively different the topography is. Yes, there's certainly a maritime influence. There's absolutely a ton of rivers, but boy, you have a lot of mountains that Bordeaux doesn't have. That is a very, very unique characteristic, because think about it. You not only have the sediment that has been left by the oceans, but now you've got millions of years of erosion and a completely different soil structure with the volcanic rock, the limestone, the igneous structures, all of that, sandstone, clay, everything involved, which is why, and we've talked a lot about dirt on Cellar Angels over the last several months with regards to how unique a landscape this is. But if we drill down further into John's property, it is has far more relief and topography than anything that we saw in Bordeaux. John is on the hillsides. His property slopes away from you. His property is actually, if I'm sitting on John's back deck, that's the view from behind me. So you can see very, very clearly that this is not flat as a pancake here in the Healdsburg region. As a matter of fact, this is Healdsburg right up here, to give you an idea of where we're located in the upper left-hand corner. And it's a special property. It's a special place. It's kind of an intersection of, 2 or 3 different AVAs with Chalk Hill, with Dry Creek, with Russian River. And John can talk about, if John wants to, and open up his mic, certainly everything that's unique about this property. But that's what's kind of special about the whole Russian River area as it relates to blending. Same types of things as Bordeaux: coastal, fog, cool, can be chilly at night, warm during the day, largely clay and alluvial. So that likely sounds very familiar. John Viszlay, go ahead.
Hey, Martin, great job.
How are you? How are you, sir?
I'm fine as frog's hair.
Good. I'll let you talk about the uniqueness of your soil. I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm parched.
Yeah, you know, this part of northern Russian River Valley, we do have a lot of clay up here, but we've got we don't hit the clay until we're about 3 feet down. So we do have a lot of nice sandy loam on top, and you know, the clay is really nice in the sense that it will retain water. I mean, it sucks if you're trying to perk and build housing, but it's really really nice for the vines. They appreciate the moisture retention. They just grow down deep and they get right into it.
That's awesome. I love it. Thank you for jumping in. So now you can see, you know, we showed the pictures of kind of how similar they are from the proximity to water. And we've always talked at Cellar Angels on these SIP events, just how big an influence the ocean plays and the rivers play. So now you've got the exact same thing in Russian River and Bordeaux. So now we're going to do kind of the geekiness for those of you that have been to classes. And this is where you can turn on your microphone, and we're going to first assess the Viszlay. So first thing you do when you assess wine formally is you go top to bottom, both in the glass, and you use basically your face. So you're going top to bottom, eyes, nose, mouth. So when we're looking at color, anybody want to throw out some colors that they believe? It helps to actually, you know, if I can get geeky, kind of do this on a white background, and you show where you can really get kind of detailed and granular. You're looking at the color from the center of the glass out. You should be doing it with good lighting, and you are trying to assess, you know, could I read through this? Is it a thick wine? Is it a bold, big, deep color where I can't even see words through it? Or is it a thinner wine where it might be a little bit more opaque and I can translucent and I can see through it? And I'm curious if anybody wants to throw out some colors. I like the brew bakers doing side by side. Love that. Or you can actually type in your chat what colors they are. Peter, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Garnets. That's what we did say. Garnets.
Garnets. It's a great color choice. Garnet's going once.
It's pretty deep.
It's a deep garnet too. Being a product of the 70s and 80s, well, 70s really. Anytime someone says deep purple, I have a hard time thinking of wine. It's always just a rock band to me. So especially when you've had 4 older brothers. So yeah, garnet, and garnet you can't really see through. It's got a great purple color to it. What I love about this wine, and as we are looking at it, and as I mentioned, you go center of the wine out to the edge of the glass. So historically and traditionally, when a wine starts aging, the edge of the wine is going to be lighter in color. Sometimes it actually turns orange, brickish red, completely different from the center of the wine. Here's how you can actually tell in my book a well-made wine. This wine's color is still really consistent from center to rim. And it's still got that awesome garnet, little bit of a tinge of ruby on there that is showing just a tiny bit of age. But this is a 2014. So this is a 7-year-old wine, and it is still very concentrated, terrific color on it all the way throughout. So that would be kind of the formal classification assessment of visual assessing. So then you're going to want to do your olfactory assessing. What are you going to smell in here? Giving it a couple good swirls. And for those of you that have some aggressive swirls, send us an email. We've got some stain remover. Not that ever happens. It happens a lot. So I'm interested to see what folks are getting on the nose. You can say that out loud, Burnses. Look at you, come on. There are no wrong answers.
For me, I get like dark fruits, kind of a little herbaceousness, probably, you see from the Cab Franc in it. That's
What kind of herbaceousness?
You know,
Like,
for me, it's kind of like I'm getting a little bit like a green pepper, but it's kind of like, you know, and then also kind of like the coffee bean, dark fruit kind of stuff you would expect to get from like a Bordeaux blend with smoke on it.
I like it. Great assessment. And then anybody else have any, by the way, the olfactory part of it to me is always the most amazing part, because when you think about it, the mouth can taste 6 things. The nose can detect 10,000. So over 10,000. And I've said for years, men aren't as good at this as women. Only, thank you, Jane. Cheers to that. Only because if you think about it, guys, when we grew up, I joke, but I swear, I think I knew 5 cents until I was 20. They were cut grass, cut wood, gasoline, locker room, and dirty laundry. Those were the aromas around my house with 8 kids. And not necessarily in that order. So, but when you start going to farmers markets and those sorts of things, and people are like, oh, this smells like anise or passion fruit, you know, and then you smell, nope, that's Sambuca. That's not anise. It's the same thing, Martin. It's okay. So those are the scents that I'm familiar with, but 10,000 of them. Think of that Rolodex that you have in your nose to be able to discern and decipher those sorts of perceptions in the wine. Which then also, when you start getting geeky, that's going to give you an indication of the region of where this is grown in the world. The age on the wine that we talked about again, or I'm sorry, the color density, start to finish, is going to give you an idea of the age. Nose is going to give you an idea of the region. And then you're doing everything with your mouth. You're confirming what you just learned or what you just thought of with your eyes and nose. So, I mean, sometimes you're like, okay, I know it's not a white wine. That's very easy. So I'm ruling out Chardonnay. I'm ruling out Sauv Blanc. I'm ruling out Semillon, you know, all that sort of stuff. Then you're starting to figure out, okay, what it is this? Scotland did an amazing job because there are some markers for Cab Franc. There are some markers for Merlot. And now you taste.
Martin, I just want to say, I remember a few years back when you discovered the 6th sense that you recognized. So I feel really honored that, you know, that I was around when you developed that you identified that 6th one.
It's not a well-honed scent. You know, every now and then I discover a new one. I think I'm in the double digits now as far as what I can detect with my nose.
And diesel
Oh,
diesel on firewood.
yeah, that's right. I'm very good, John, at understanding when diesel is aflame. It's an inside story of when John literally approached a fire with a gas can that I went running away from, but I didn't recognize he had diesel in the can and not unleaded like we have here in Chicago.
Diesel, never gas.
Never gas. To me, they're the same thing. They're a petroleum-based fuel. So how are we?
Best nights ever, though.
Yeah, and that was the night we took this picture, just sitting out back, burning barrels, burning wine barrels, drinking wine. It didn't stink. All right, Brewbakers, Shillings, any assessment comments? All right, that's okay. Doug, I can't trust mine at all. If the first thing to go with coronavirus is your smell, I apparently have had coronavirus since 1982. Denise has got Mission Control and Ivy. They've got the impeccable smellers. So that's the assessment process as you're doing wine. So when we do these for Wine Club, this takes several days because there's so many wines, and you have to basically clear your head. Oftentimes we have no food near us at all. You shouldn't wear any type of perfume or cologne or anything like that when you're assessing wine. Try to keep the coffee cup away from the table that you're drinking while you're assessing wine, that type of stuff, because you really want to have a very, very cleansed palate. You want to have your sense and factory free from any type of disturbances in that capacity. I heard a great analogy one time. I don't know if it's biologically true, but that the 10,000 receptors in your nasal cavity are like little candles. So when you smell a rose, the candle that registers rose to your brain gets blown out, and it takes a second or two for it to light back up again, like one of those trick candles. So when you see people sniffing and sniffing and sniffing, it's a little bit defeating because those olfactory nerves and sensations haven't had a time to actually refresh. So give it some air, swirl it a little bit. And then also you'll see people suck air through their mouth because that actually livens up the wine a lot in your mouth, and you'll feel different things in different areas of your mouth. So you'll feel acid in certain areas, a coating of fruit in other areas, kind of all over the mouth, but that's what you want to do from an aggressive swirl and aggressive tasting.
Hey, Martin.
Yes.
You know, the other thing that when we're smelling the wine, the angle and location of the glass can play a big part. Because if we're down here at 6 o'clock, you're picking up alcohol vapors. If you're up here at the top of the glass, that's when you're going to pick up the fruit and actually not get overwhelmed by the alcohol vapors, which are heavier and will tend to be at the 6 o'clock portion of your glass rim.
I like it. Is there a time zone impact on that as far as 6 and 9 and 12 o'clock? I like it. It works very much so. So, all right. So now you have in your hand and your glass in your mouth and a couple nice healthy sips of the Viszlay Bordeaux blend from John. And now we're going to move on to the field blend. So you did fantastic there. I'm very impressed. So now field blend. Field blend is crazy cool. So think about it from a standpoint. I mean, it's really fascinating to me. It's an ancient practice. Does anybody in the chat know who did it and why they did field blends? I have to get the Jeopardy music queued up. So if you've got the chat and you want to discuss why they're doing field blends, the Druids, very close. The Druids are close. It dates all the way back to the monks. And was there a correct answer in the Fogarty household? It doesn't, by the way, it doesn't count unless no one hears it. If no one hears it. So wrong answer. No, I'm just teasing. Good job. Yes, it goes all the way back to the monks. Now, why they did it is even also interesting. So field blend, to give you kind of an analogy, is, you know, when you go to the market or seed store and you can buy seeds of any produce you want. You can also buy a packet of wildflowers where it's just random seeds and you just throw it into the backyard, into the garden or whatever, and anything's going to grow up. It's going to be daisies, going to be lilies, going to be hydrangea. Well, you don't know what's going to come up. It's just a randomness. That's exactly what field blends are. So it was done in ancient times because they had no scientific equipment, they had no technology, but they wanted to be assured that Mother Nature wasn't going to actually, if they just planted Zinfandel or if they just planted Senso, and that's all they planted, and there was a bad year, then they had nothing else. So they decided, okay, let's hedge our bets. We're going to plant 20 grapes in this field, and they're not all going to ripen at the same time. They're not all going to have a fantastic vintage because some of them are going to be more susceptible to frost. Some are going to be more susceptible to rain. But the consistency of a field blend is what they're after, because they know year in and year out, no matter what Mother Nature is going to throw at them, they have enough insulation and they've hedged their bet enough that they'll be able to harvest this all together, ferment it all together, and produce a wine that's very consistent and very good quality. So that is actually what happened years and years and years ago. And it's still in practice today in fewer and fewer areas. Austria, the United States, Portugal. Think of port. There's 90 different grapes on average in your typical ports. That's a field blend for the most part. So Spicy Vines is Rhone inspired as it relates to field blends. And by the way, it's actually a good segue because next week we're having a battle royale and going deep on Rhone wines. And in this wine for spicy vines is Grenache, Zinfandel, Carignan, Cinsault, and Petit Syrah. So there is a spectacular video on the Cellar Angels website on the spicy vines offer. Now, don't go to it now, but when you go to it, recognize that it's a 30-minute video. The clip that I think is important is the clip from about 1:18 to the 4:59 mark or five minute mark. And so what you'll see there is you'll see Doug Hackett. Oh, that's actually pretty well. The production studio's on point today. There's a clip right there in the chat line to talk about this, but it's pretty cool because Doug is in the Edge Vineyard in Dry Creek Valley, and he's walking among these old vines, and they are just so freaking beautiful because there's these gnarly creatures that, you know, they don't have any trellising system, but you'll see one vine has already had bud break. It's already sprouting. Another vine right next to it completely shut down and dormant because it's ripening at a much slower rate. So when you fast forward that throughout the entire growing season, you get a completely different ripening process for 4 or 5, 6 varieties. And you don't really know optimal time to pick because it could be past harvest time for one, could be premature, a little bit early for another. So when you harvest, it's kind of a little bit of blind luck. You try to harvest at the optimal time for a majority of the vineyard, but that's where you get that consistency because Mother Nature is not going to wipe out, you hope, the entire vineyard with something. Some varieties will survive better than others. And I encourage you to watch that video, especially that 5-minute clip or so that Denise just put in, because it is pretty interesting to see one vine flourishing and the early shoots that are coming up. You can actually even see the early grape clusters that are very, very fragile in that state because a heavy rainstorm can knock those grape clusters off and they won't seed. And then another vine right next to it and a row over is completely shut down. It almost looks like it's deceased. So now on the spicy vines, back to assessment time. And while you're assessing the wine, so now you should be experts at color, aroma, and palate. Another reason why people do it in the United States is because they want to showcase how special this terroir is. You know, we're talking about a French term. So they want to showcase that, look, this vineyard block right here can actually produce wines of incredible caliber, depth, nuance, flavor, elegance across multiple varieties. And they want to showcase that. So they continue to do field blends. There's a couple wineries in Napa and Sonoma that do them. There's actually, and John, you may know this one. I was reading about a winery that does a white Rhone blend of some very, very cool white field blend, rather. Sorry, which I thought was fascinating. So who wants to throw out a color on the spicy vines? I'll give you a hint. Dorothy. Okay, this is the shyest group ever.
Ruby.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sounds like we can play charades. Ruby is correct. You're looking at this on a white piece of paper. It is absolutely ruby. Now, I mean, it's not the glittery, shiny brightness of like Dorothy's ruby slippers, but these are definitely ruby in color. Greg, I see your doubting face. It's a little ruby. Lighting and white paper is a huge difference on this too, because I've seen if doing this in yellow light and stuff like that, it is absolutely completely different. Jeff Greasy, the ruby at the center fading slightly to the edge. Yes, absolutely. Mr. Viszlay, do you consider yourself a counterculturalist by growing Bordeaux varieties in Russian River? I get the Dellinger Cab Sav, but there aren't so many more wineries doing it, to my knowledge, might be incomplete. John.
Yes,
Doug
sir.
Rutherford from Minnesota. Any comments on that?
Absolutely not a counterculturalist. I am in a unique situation in the Russian River Valley where I'm at the northern edge of Russian River, so I butt directly to Chalk Hill, which is famous for Cabernet Merlot. Also, Alexander Valley is, well, if I were a better golfer, I could probably drive a ball into Alexander Valley over the hill. But so my location is at the northern edge of Russian River Valley. So I'm in the Goldilocks zone. And I say that because we grow 12 different kinds of grapes here, including Chardonnay and Pinot, which are the traditional Russian River Valley grapes. But we do have 5 different Bordeaux grapes here, along with Zinfandel and Petit Syrah, and a couple of other lesser knowns, Prosecco, Alicante Boucher. So yeah, we're in this great little Goldilocks zone, as I say, where we can grow all these different varietals, and they're all happy. We get just enough fog and cool influences from the ocean, but we get plenty of heat, and so everybody's happy. This is one of the few spots where you can actually do that.
Yeah, Doug, John is, if you're looking at the screen now, is right up in here. Area here. And so he's in the northern part of Russian River Valley. Chalk Hill is right here. Alexander Valley right there. Dry Creek right there. So that's why he's kind of in that Goldilocks zone where he can draw from all of the magic of all these areas. And if you remember from last week when we did Knightsbridge from Knights Valley, you can actually just see how close this AVA is to all the other AVAs. And again, we saw the beautiful topography and the mountainous regions of Knights Valley, completely different from Bordeaux from that capacity. But yeah, John is in a very, very special area right up here, just outside of Healdsburg, but very near essentially some of the attributes associated with all 4 of these different AVAs. Great question.
I could probably put Chalk Hill on our cab if I wanted to.
Interesting. And seriously, you could hit a golf ball that far? I'm gonna have to. I really.
Well, I've dreamed about it.
I can hit a golf ball that far a couple times, a couple swings.
He probably got a new driver.
Exactly.
Thank
Awesome.
you, Chad.
You're welcome. Mine's on order 10 weeks out.
I like it. So that gives you an idea of, and remember when I said early on, Russian River is, I believe, if not the largest, it's darn near, well, maybe the Sonoma coast acre wise is larger just because of how long it is. But Russian River Valley and Petaluma Gap, Russian River Valley has 15,000 acres under vines. Bordeaux has 740,000. So that just gives you an idea of how massive Bordeaux is compared to Sonoma and Napa combined. I mean, it's just a giant region as far as acres under vines. United States has 15,000 wineries. Bordeaux, I think, has 32,000, just Bordeaux alone. I mean, it's just amazing. So that I love this little map with regards so you can see the AVAs.
Martin?
All right. So we're doing the assessment now on the spicy vines. What do we have for color?
It's in the chat.
It's in the chat. Oh, wow. Everyone's jumping ahead. Scotland, Crux is much further north. Because let me see if I can get back there. Probably have to share my screen again. That'd be easy. Oh, that's not what I want. So Crux is way up north of Dry Creek, right in here. Actually, they're on the other side of the river. That's right. They're a ways up there. You will swear that they filmed the movie Seven there, final scene. That's how far remote you are.
Yeah, it's way up there.
Way up there. Good question. So colors we have, I'm going to read through this. Yep, little licorice on the edge. Okay, so everyone's getting the licorice. That's interesting.
Well, black pepper from the Syrah.
Black pepper from the Syrah. Wet potting soil. Then you get those good earthy components. That's that potting soil. Anise and blueberry. A lot of folks getting blueberry. Interesting. That's correct as well from a standpoint of in there, which what makes field blends so darn fun is you've got 5 or 6 different varietals in here and they all have different characteristics, different aromas, different taste sensation. And it's really never the same twice. Each year it can be a completely different offering based upon what Mother Nature did, and then what Mother Nature, how she was able to impact ripening, growing season, fruit set, production, everything. Nelson, I definitely agree with you on the strawberry.
Mother Nature blend.
I like Mother Nature blend. I'd trademark that, Chad.
I'm filling out my paperwork now.
See what Jeff said. That's why we do our own tasting notes. Because they probably did the tasting notes when it was freshly bottled.
No, they probably did. Jeff brings up a very good point that if you read the back of the Spicy Vines bottle, their tasting notes and assessments are a little bit different than what all of us got. Now, there's obviously a time difference, right? So there's when they were, and actually Chad and John, I'd be interested in this. And by the way, for those of you that don't know Chad Angelo is a winemaker extraordinaire of Angelo Cellars. So we've got 2 winemakers on tonight, 2 owners of wineries on tonight, because they don't have anything else to do on their Friday night. And they would just as soon chat with all of us. So we're humbled by that. But I'd be curious, we'll start with Chad first. When do you write the tasting notes?
Well, if you're going to put them on the labels, you're going to have to do it probably at least 6 months before you bottle it. So in my case, that would be like right now. Well, we're getting ready to bottle our 2019 vintages in August. So right now I would be, if I'm putting it on the label, I'm having to write them right now so that we can get the labels made and get everything ready to go for bottling in August. So that would be about 14 months after we harvested and started the process of making wine.
And then how much, Chad, in your specific case, bottle age do you give your wines?
I start tasting them 6 months after we've bottled. So I just tasted the 18s because they are 6 months after we bottled last August. And we normally go at least a year, if not 14 to 16 months in the bottle.
Wow. So that gives you an idea of just the variation and length of time between when the winemaker is tasting it and writing these notes and when we're all tasting and writing these notes. And Justin, practice, get on the ball, my brother. Exactly. You have to get in the practice. Now, John, same thing, same timeline, just about?
Very, very similar. For us, we've always kind of been a little bit more traditional in our aging in terms of trying to go 2 years in the barrel, at least a year, maybe 2 years in the bottle before we release. We're changing kind of our philosophy in that sense because we need to make money. And so basically, we're gonna start releasing our wines a little earlier than we have in the past. But in terms of tasting notes, as you guys know, I'm very hesitant to put tasting notes, especially on a bottle, because our palates are so unique and different. And I would much rather have you tell me what you experience in a wine than have me tell you what I think you're going to experience in the wine. If you're drinking wine and you're part of Martin's group, you guys probably already understand so much about wine that you can decipher from the label itself what year that grape was grown, where it was grown, who produced that wine, what region it was in. Those are the things you're going to know what to expect in that wine. And I would much rather have you tell me that you're picking up strawberry notes or chocolate notes or whatever the notes might be, so that I can say, yeah, you know what, I get that too. Because sometimes people give me I'll give you a very specific example, which kind of surprised me. A few years back, I'm having a tasting and somebody says, wow, I taste Christmas. And I looked at them, I like cocked my head and I'm like, I've never heard that before. And then sure enough, I have people telling me that they taste Christmas in a bottle. And I'm like, okay, now I get it. Now I understand. You're relating a memory, which is what wine tasting is, right? I mean, you're associating what you taste right now with a memory of strawberries or whatever it might be, or maybe it was just an exceptional moment in time for you, like Christmas. And
you're right, like strawberries or a pine scent or something that triggered a memory of Christmas.
Something triggered a memory, and that's exactly what it was. And I would much rather have that feedback than me tell you, hey, you know what? I get some strawberry notes on my Zinfandel, which I do and I love. But sometimes It's a little brambleberry. Maybe it's a little bit more blackberry. But we all have these palates, and so I enjoyed feedback much more than writing tasting notes, because what would happen if I said, I expect you to taste chocolate in this Cabernet, and you said, wow, man, I didn't pick up any of that. And you're thinking to yourself, I don't relate to this guy at all. So I'd much rather have you have a wonderful experience, tell me what it was, and go from there.
I would probably say I didn't get any chocolate. I suck and sulk away and go to the driving range.
It's funny you say that, John, because when I'm doing tastings or blending and stuff, first thing I go to is what food I would put with it. Oh, this would be so good. I was just at, some restaurant in Napa the night before. And I thought, oh, this wine would have went fabulous with that appetizer we had last night. And
Chad,
that's how I kind of do things initially when I start.
I totally agree with you. I'd much rather talk about a food pairing with the wine than a tasting note.
Well, that's interesting because that literally is the next section of tonight's broadcast, food pairing. But we do have a question from Doug Rutherford. Since we have two winemakers here, let us know your opinion, if you have one, on the Ulo that he's showing on the screen sulfite filter. Have you seen it? Put that back up, Doug. Filter sulfites, aerate, enjoy.
I have not seen that one.
I've not seen it either.
Thumbs down from both of the winemakers, John. Doug. No, it's interesting because we ran into this a lot when we owned the wine store. And Justin, you guys, the Burnses, remember this. John Lalaganis is on, I think, and he I'm sure could chime in on this if he wanted to. Sulfites are natural. So when you're stripping out the sulfites, I'd be interested in that, because one of the common analogies or comparisons we had was that those little cans of tomato paste that everyone uses to make good tomato sauce, that has more sulfites in it than a bottle of red wine. So how are you, and I don't know if it's more chemical. So I don't know, Doug, if they're stripping the sulfites out, if that's naturally a good thing. There is a huge perception, and I'm going to say it's a misperception, that sulfites cause headaches, sulfites cause, skin breakdown. That could very well be. There's thousands of sulfites, right? And people say, oh, I remember when I was in Paris and I was drinking wine, or I was in Spain, I didn't get any headaches over there. It's like, well, yeah, let's look at the optics here. You're sitting on a board, on a patio in Paris, drinking wine and paying €6 and having someone bring you a cheese plate. It doesn't stink. So I wouldn't get a headache either. So there is a psychosomatic component to that. And we've gone round and round with sulfites and doctors and stuff like that, talking to them about it, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of sulfites in wine. I don't know what stripping that out would do. And I think, and I would love to be proven wrong or right, that little apparatus there is more a commercial mechanism to sell to the fear that wine causes sulfites and headaches and stuff like that than actual benefit.
Yeah, Martin, I would chime in and say that, I think people with the perception of an allergic reaction to sulfur or sulfites is really somewhat psychosomatic, because sulfur is so prevalent as a preservative in so many foods that we have. What people don't understand is there are histamines in wine that causes allergic reactions. And I think if you experience an allergic reaction, it's more from a histamine than it is from a sulfite.
Agreed.
Or alcohol. Some people have some allergic reactions to alcohol. For instance, my mother is deathly allergic to alcohol. And thank God I didn't get that gene, because I'd be a drug addict. Drink. So,
This would be a terrible vocation for you.
Yeah. So, but I agree with John, but I also know that some people also have some things that they tend to be allergic to alcohol. And I have several friends that they developed it a little later in life, and come to find out they can't drink at all anymore. It was just they were drinking wine when it started to occur in their body. And then the next thing you know, I'll stop drinking wine and try something else. And the next thing you know, they try tequila or something else, or beer or something, and they start having the same problems. So that's another thing that can happen, and I've seen it.
Well, interesting. And Doug, I think you're correct with regards to that. Now, where did Doug's comment go? Oh, no, the tannins. I definitely think the tannins have an aspect to it as well. I also am convinced that if you do not, and I don't think anybody here has ever gotten a headache on a wine trip in France or Italy, so we have to take the show on the road and take everybody over to France and Italy and do a remote. That would be good, and that has been in the plans. There you go. Jim is on board, by the way, because I think we're doing a ship cruise. But let me just finish this while I've got the two winemakers here, because they've been kind enough to bestow some time. Barbie Heffernan, the supplement molybdenum helps for histamines. Thank you, Barbie. JT, you win. I'm allergic to alcohol. It makes me drunk. So all good. And I'm appreciative of that. So we've got assessment, color, and aroma done on spicy vines. That is the learning episode and classroom portion of this evening's show. There is a take-home quiz. Of course, there's not. There's, for those of you, I saw Jim Brubaker, you looked up with a little bit of concern. Next week, by the way, we're going deep into the Rhone Valley. The Rhone is a very, 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 very special area that doesn't get enough love, but boy, is there a QPR, a quality to price ratio, that will knock your socks off and save your wallets with Rhone wines. And I'd like you to bring 5 friends, because all of you are what makes this mission worthwhile, and the specialness and uniqueness of your adoration and love for wine and kindness to each other is really what is truly remarkable, and what keeps the engine humming here at Cellar Angels. So for those of you in the wine club, it is shipping Monday. So get excited, because it is a doozy. I'm very excited for what was put together by Ivy and Denise, and the tasting notes, which you just participated in 2 wines they did for, I think 14 or so. But that is going to be going out on Monday. So you're all going to be excited for that. And after that, ladies and gentlemen, you survived tonight's session on blends. Class is dismissed. Please go about your regular Friday night activities. Have a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much for all the support. Be good to one another. Can't do this